Cami Kaos.
Hi.
Hello. Why are we doing this?
Because I have autism.
Okay.
I don't know. Why are you doing this?
I think that's a good place to start. Let's go back a little bit.
A little bit. Not to the beginning.
We'll go back to, I would like to talk about your childhood and like signs of maybe this being present or prevalent. But I think the motivation for me to sit down with you, whether it's obvious or not, I mean, it was easy because
convenient.
We happened to be in the same house. But I did want to talk about it because we had a podcast we were working on called Mildly Interesting People. And it kind of just abruptly went away. And I know you get a lot of questions about it. I get a lot of questions about it. So maybe we start there. Why did Mildly Interesting People just suddenly stop? And maybe give people the context of what Mildly Interesting People was.
Mildly Interesting People was an interview show where Rick and I interviewed people that we knew that were super duper interesting.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Breaking the fourth wall. We interviewed people who were super duper interesting because he and I are just mildly interesting people.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun. It was, I mean, you were there. It was a lot of fun. It was good to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I was really enjoying it, except that it was another level of demand on my time, on my brain, on my energy. And I was in the middle of what we know now was an autistic breakdown.
Right. Which we thought was a nervous breakdown.
We thought was a nervous breakdown and burnout.
Yeah.
And after a lot of medical and psychiatric appointments.
Yep.
Years later now, we kind of know what's going on. So the stress was too much for me to be able to commit. I couldn't schedule an interview with someone.
Well, and I think talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, podcast, easy, just sit down with people and talk with them. But like, I don't think a lot of people understand the exponential level of stress with like each person you add to that mix.
So you and I scheduling this was super duper easy because we are in the same space.
Right.
And we could just be like, hey, are you up to it? Yeah, I'm up to it. And that's pretty solid anytime you and I want to work on a project.
Yep.
The moment you add a third person, then it no longer becomes about, oh, I'm free now. It becomes about, when are you free? When am I free? When is this third person free? What are we going to talk about? Explaining context of the situation, making sure that they feel comfortable. I turn into a complete and total people pleaser with everyone involved. And then there's the emotional, and I don't mean this in a negative way with the guests at all, it's my choice to do, the emotional hand-holding with what we're going to talk about and how it's going to be released. And most of the time we're leveraging our personal relationship.
Are you going to promote this when it comes out? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot. And one of the things that broke down really hard during my breakdown was my executive function.
Yeah.
So it was impossible for me to get up in time to make coffee for myself in the morning at that point. I was, I'm going to talk about when I came home from my business trip, when it all kind of started.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I went on a business trip to Europe. It was the first time I had traveled out of the country since the global pandemic. It was a really awful experience, both for me personally and professionally.
Well, and you were injured.
I was also injured. I was recovering from an injury. I was still using a cane when I walked. I got there, you get the little... One of the things about me is that I mask really well.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know something has to happen, I'm just going to suit up. And so I spent the week I was there suited up.
Yeah, it's kind of Gen X martyrdom that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it. I'm fine. I'm cool.
Yeah.
And then I flew home. How many days did I sleep when I got home?
A lot of days.
I normally crash when I get home from any trip, let alone like a trip overseas.
Well, you usually plan for it.
Right.
You're usually like, I traveled or I worked this weekend, so I'm going to take an equal number of days to recover from that, which I think is absolutely fair.
I have had to do that for a long while, and it's been in my professional life a source of a lot of contention for people that work with me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do something big, I need to have an equal amount of time to recover, sometimes more.
Yep.
So I came home from this trip in which I felt that there was some really unpleasant and unprofessional treatment of me while I was already in a stressed out situation. And I came home and thought I had COVID. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. My body was so weak. I couldn't think. I called my doctor and couldn't get in. I went to a Zoom care and they were like, you don't have COVID. Go to your real doctor. Which, hey, Zoom care, don't tell people just to go to their real doctor. You're a real doctor. Sorry. Continue. And my doctor immediately was like looking at my vitals, checking everything that was going on with me, and was like, you're going on medical leave right now. I'm writing you a note. You're taking a couple weeks off work. You need to rest. And she didn't really talk to me about what was going on. She just said that my blood pressure had reached a point that if I didn't agree to bed rest, I had to agree to hospitalization. So I took a couple weeks off and thought that a couple weeks off would make things better. Mm-hmm. And at the end of my couple weeks off, when I went back to my doctor for her to sign off on whether or not I could go back to work, I started crying because I was so terrified of having to do anything at all. And I was put on a 3-month FMLA leave.
Oh, what's FMLA?
Family Medical
Leave of
absence. Yeah, it's an emergency medical leave of absence.
Yep.
And after...
And you didn't want to do a podcast while you had all this downtime?
Right. So I had all this downtime and it was super fun.
So relaxing.
This would be the one time in my life where I will say I was so high maintenance for myself. I was doing 40-hour weeks of therapy and meditation and trying not to cry and trying to feel anything, because it was really between the two extremes. I either was feeling absolutely everything and I was unconsolable, or I was completely numb and really wanted to stay in that numb space. Mm-hmm. Once I was finally able to start communicating with people other than you and my kid, I started making a lot of psychiatric appointments and was diagnosed readily with ADHD. And that was not something that surprised me. I had always known I probably had ADHD. And I was like, this is great. Okay, I know what's wrong with me. Thank you. And there had been something that a person very close to me had said that was like patting me in the back of the head that I was ignoring. And when I heard that I had ADHD, I was like, that's fantastic. I don't have autism. And so I talked to my psychiatrist about that, the one who diagnosed my ADHD. And she was like, oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have ADHD. And I was super confused because I didn't know that you could have ADHD and autism. I thought that the two were mutually exclusive. I don't know why I thought that. I didn't really know much about either of them.
Yep.
And so I was encouraged to talk to an autism specialist. And after so many treatment and diagnostic facilities that refuse to bill your insurance and charge you $10,000 for an assessment and a diagnosis, I finally found a reputable doctor's clinic that takes insurance and actually treats its patients. And I took all of my preliminary tests and I laughed at some of the things that they asked because they were so specifically ridiculous to my life.
Yeah.
And then the next day I had my one-on-one assessment with the doctor. And I expected them to be like, yeah, we'll talk to you more about this in a few months or a couple weeks. We have a backlog. And they're like, we're really comfortable diagnosing you with autism today. And I was like, no, I don't have autism. And they're like, yeah, let's sit with this. And so that was last year. So yeah, I had way too much going on in my brain to reliably on any schedule be involved. I couldn't even hold down a job. I certainly couldn't do a podcast.
Right. Well, and you also did touch on the aspect of which I'm trying to combat with this format, which was sitting on what was an online
That was depressing
platform call with people that you care about and love was further exacerbating that feeling of distance and disconnection.
After we interviewed Martin, I cried for like an hour.
Yeah.
Because contextually, so that people know, Martin is Martin Kelly. And he is one of my best friends. I've known him since I was 19 years old. And I haven't seen him in a long time. And so talking to him wrecked me completely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think with everything else that was happening at the time, that was just yet another thing that caused that sort of fracture.
Actually caused more stress and upset because it was something that I wanted to do and couldn't do. Like I didn't want to work and couldn't work. I was like, I can't work. Let's rest. Yeah. But I wanted to talk to my friends. I love interviewing people. Right. This is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there's a term for it. I don't know the term for it, but it's that I'll use an analogy to describe it, and I think you'll get where I'm going. There's that you see a car that you've never seen or you think you've never seen before. It's
bias.
A prevalence bias or like
something recognition bias.
Yeah,
I believe
something like that, where it's like, oh, I've never seen that car before, and then once you've seen it, you see that car everywhere. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I've been seeing it the whole time. I just didn't realize it. Like
confirmation bias. No, it's recognition bias.
Something, yeah, it's something. I'm sure there are terms for it. But
someone will put it in the comment.
Right. This is an interactive show. The taking that, whatever that bias is, and that analogy.
I've seen 20 silver Eurovans today. Oh my God.
Exactly. You have to be going back through times in your life where you're like, oh, that's what that was. Like, how
bad is it?
Not how bad is it, but just like, how obvious is it to you now? Where were those clues, and where do you think you picked up on the fact that you were processing things in an alternative way compared to others, or you were acting in a way that was others considered abnormal, like that kind of thing?
I knew I was acting in a way that others considered abnormal when I was like 5. Mm-hmm. And I have spent my entire life trying, like, I'm weird, I'm different, and I'm unique. Nobody noticed what's actually different about me. Please, for the love of God.
Right.
I learned to read when I was 3 because my brother was reading and I was jealous. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed as dyslexic when I was very young in elementary school, but I was also reading at a high school, college level. And so that was just discounted. It was thrown out. I can never remember the word for math dyslexia. I can't remember the word for math dyslexia, but that is even more prevalent in my history. Mm-hmm. I've struggled with math my entire life. Those were things that I was able to just charm my way out of a little, I think. Yeah. I was put into like remedial reading circles and then advanced reading circles. I'm so smart, if only I pay attention. Lacks connection with other students. my obsessive need to play with specific and certain things or to do specific activities, my getting super duper upset anytime someone disrupted my schedule or my plans, like what I know is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Being fine if I do it. Those were all like really heavy parts of my childhood.
Yeah.
And I think today we've noticed that, but also acknowledge that medical and psychiatric study is still heavily cis white men. They're just beginning to tell us what autism and ADHD and other neurodiversities look like in women.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what I'm answering.
Shocker. Well, I get where we were going was signs that now seem obvious to you, like, and you know, there. I think I've heard you verbalize childhood things, and that can be difficult for any number of reasons. But like, are there more recent?
I'm going to talk
as an adult.
Excuse me. I'm going to talk about
backlit sound on the microphone.
Was my silk fingertip.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about bowls now.
Bowls.
Small bowls.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of bowls in this house.
Yeah.
We have a lot of different kinds of bowls and a lot of different sizes of bowls and they're all sets. I don't like to have just one of something.
Sure.
It bugs me.
Yeah. There are at least two.
Of everything.
Yeah.
I hate it when someone gives me one of something, like one glass. It's a really pretty glass. I need to toast somebody with it. I need to set something. Anyway, that's actually a thing right there, all by itself, I think.
You must love those restaurants where they like bring chairs from all kinds of different places and have all kinds of different china settings all cobbled together. Those must be your favorite places to be.
If they have done it in a super intentional way. But if I walk in and like there are three matching chairs sitting next to each other and everything else is, no, it has to be consistent. I need consistency.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, we have all these bowls, and really the big thing about bowls that caused me to have like a complete meltdown and realize that they were right and I have autism, was that you're going to have to talk about this. I think I can't let people eat out of bags or boxes when I'm around unless they're consuming everything in that bag or box. And even if they are, like it's a little bag of potato chips, I personally cannot eat out of that little bag of potato chips without like going completely shutting down. Everything about that experience is horrible to me. The crinkling sound, not knowing where I'm going to find something, the grease of the potato chip, the way that the bag feels on my hand. You're looking at me like I'm crazy at school.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm used to it by now.
I know you are. So for many, many years, and for my daughter's entire life, I have forced my partner and my child to eat their snacks out of bowls and off of plates. I didn't realize I was making them do it. I thought I was helping them by being nice and giving them a bowl to put something in. It didn't occur to me until therapy that I was forcing people not to eat snacks out of bags.
It feels like living in an Elizabethan manner where everything must be served just so.
I'm trying to unwind that a little bit. It's also one of the things that I'm just accepting about myself. I'm like, if you choose to eat out of the bag, I'm not going to stop you. And you typically don't do it because you are a really considerate individual and you know that that sound makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. We are we're finding ways to manage this new reality in which you're existing. Like, have you found techniques that either worked previously and you didn't realize it? Have you, as an autistic adult, figured out new things that you've incorporated that have helped you? I'm really curious because I think we're having a number of people who suddenly find themselves in this situation where they're like, I knew there was something, but I didn't know quite what it was. And now that I know what it is, I can actually do the research and understand things. Like, are there tips or techniques or things you've now made part of your existence that you find helpful?
The biggest and most helpful thing that I have done is a lot of therapy to help me accept that it's okay to be who I am and stop hiding it.
Yep.
You are probably the person that had seen me unmasked the most in my life before the diagnosis. It is really hard to unmask, especially when you don't know the degree to which you are doing it. I had a really difficult, I don't think I'm answering your question, but I'm saying what I'm saying now.
Okay.
I had a really difficult time with the understanding that as a 47-year-old woman, I had no idea who I was. I had spent my entire life from the moment I understood that my behavior was upsetting, and it was probably before 5, but that's when I remember being in school and adjusting my personality. How much of me is me and how much of me is a mask that I've created for another person, because if you brought 10 of my friends into a room, I probably have a different personality for every single one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
And not like multiple personality disorder.
No, but like
I'm not Tyler Durden.
Like code switching.
Yes, I code switch like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Right.
What was your actual question?
Well,
how am I?
Please describe like that code switching dynamic for people who might not be familiar with like the term code switching, or like what is that? What does that mean to you? Those different personalities.
So the easiest way for me to explain code switching, and the way I've explained it in a non-racial way, has been business Cami versus personal Cami. Personal Cami. Personal Cami is one thing. Business Cami is very direct, soft-spoken, not aggressive but assertive, willing to like it's just to cut through the bullshit. Professional. I would never speak to someone in my professional life the way I talk to someone in my personal life.
Right.
And if I'm sitting here having a personal conversation with you and someone I work with walks in, I'm immediately going to switch to that. Yeah. Because you know me, and I mean, frankly, you did the same thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have several. Most of mine are all business personalities, but like and people have learned to ask me for the personality that they want. They're like, I need a silicon florist Rick right now, or I need a pie Rick right now. Like,
I need the coach hat, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I totally get that.
So acceptance, in the answer to your question, has been my biggest tool. And it still
just
not
personal acceptance,
accepting who I am and seeing. I've spent most of my life advocating for people who are neurodiverse without knowing I was neurodiverse. Yep. And then later on, I kind of started to figure it out, but I couldn't specify because it was ignored my entire youth. How could something possibly be so important that I didn't know about it for 40 plus years of my life that I needed to know right now? And it changed everything and absolutely nothing at the same time. So within my home, within my tiny, I have like, you've got family, and then I have what I call my tiny family. Within my tiny family structure, literally the thing it changed was me saying the word autism 100 times a day. I mean, that was the big autism.
I used to get a autism fact of the day on a fairly consistent basis. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It was kind of the same way. Like, how do you know somebody's vegan? How do you know somebody does CrossFit? How do you know somebody's autistic? They'll tell you.
There was it was only a couple months ago, but you were going to lunch with a person who also has autism. Yep. And I believe they were telling you about compression socks. And I felt so bad because I know that you had just, not only have you heard a lot about compression socks, but I've actually made you try multiple kinds of compression socks with the thought that they might somehow have the same effect that they do for me, for you, and they do not. But yeah, that day I felt
There's a lot of autism that day.
there was a lot of autism that day.
Very special day. And well, I think where I was trying to go, and it's fine that we're all over the place, is I have noticed you adopting, this will come as no shock, certain patterns that you try and complete every day. Like I just think it would be helpful if you're comfortable, like revealing some of those like habitual pattern recognition things you've started to incorporate that seem, from my perspective, seem to be helping.
I will miss some of them, and I would be really curious to hear you let me know what some that you see are if I've missed them.
Okay.
The big one for me that seems really pretentious I don't know how it seems to people. No one's actually said anything. They've just looked at me funny. I never want to wake up to an alarm clock again. I don't currently wake up to an alarm clock. I usually wake up around 7.
Yeah.
If I have an alarm clock, I cannot wake up to an alarm clock. It causes me to enter the day in fight or flight mode. I wake up scared and upset. And so, number one.
Which you're supposed to say the scared and upset for the work day.
Exactly. Right. Don't be scared and upset in your bed. Wake up great.
Yeah.
Go to work and then be scared and upset.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, waking up without an alarm has been the first accommodation that I've made for myself.
Yeah.
And I have not called it an accommodation until just now, and I felt really bad about it. And I am trying not to feel bad about it because it has been super duper effective for me. Another that I think you're talking about is meditation. So my day when I wake up usually looks like this. I wake up, no alarm. I spend a lot of time in bed, just kind of chilling out and thinking, looking at what my day is going to be like. When I first open my eyes, there is a set of pills that I have to take for ADHD and blood pressure. And so I take those pills, I get out of bed, I eat a little something, I meditate, and I've added recently yoga back into my practice. So I meditate and do yoga. I think that those are very separate. They're both mindfulness based, but for me, meditation and yoga, I can't meditate while I'm doing yoga. It's too physical for me to really engage.
Yep.
I don't know. There's other stuff I do, I'm sure.
I've noticed, one thing I notice is journaling, not intensive journaling, but at least tracking
you're right.
behaviors.
I have. There's this, is it Liechtenstein? What's that, the journal type that I liked?
Oh, yeah. It's something like that.
It's some German name.
Yeah.
I have a soft pink leather journal. I think I'm on number 6. They're all identical. I want to talk about that in a minute.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I have, my format changes, but I have a format. I try to log stuff every day. I specifically log whether or not I meditated, whether or not I took my medication, and if I'm having any mood fluctuations that I've noticed. Because along with, I'm going to tell you, people with AuDHD, ADHD, or autism who are not diagnosed in their youth have a likelihood for horrible mental health issues. Wonder why. And so I track all of that. And then I usually track whether or not I am doing like something physical. Yay. So I'll track if I did yoga, if I went for walking. And then I generally have a me section. These are things I'm doing just for myself. And then an everyone else section. And that's the house and everyone else.
Yep.
And that, thank you. Yeah, that's critical to me. Peanut butter is also critical to my lifestyle, but
because there's so much peanut butter. And you're the only one eating it because I can't eat peanut butter. But
I sometimes feel bad about even having it in the house.
I love peanut butter. I just can't eat it.
That's why I feel bad about having it in the house. I'm sorry.
One thing, and this may come as a shock to people, but if anybody's watched Mildly Interesting People, they know that like movies and television are a huge part of our like consumption for comfort kind of things. And
yeah, we have that in common. That's very nice.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if it's the ADHD or the autism or somewhere a combination thereof, you find it very difficult to just sit and watch a program without doing something else.
I think that's the ADHD.
Okay.
Yeah, because of my friends with ADHD, that's a very common issue. And I actually have a friend who I never thought about whether or not his wife had ADHD, but suddenly I'm like, oh shit, she probably does. That also happens a lot after your diagnosis. You start to see similar traits in other people, and you're like, shit, I wonder if they know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like gaydar.
Yeah, it is. It's very much like gaydar. Yeah. So I have gaydar and...
There needs to be some...
There needs to be a dar for it.
Dar.
Yeah.
AuDHD.
Oh, AuDHD. Okay.
And that, like, going down that path, that makes me think, like, do you think those grandmas who used to just knit all the time, like that was ADHD, like,
and or autism?
Soothing? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I was somewhere.
Not that you have to be a grandma to knit.
No, I can't.
Anyone can knit.
I can't knit. My cousin is an amazing knitter, though. She's like sat in our home and created beautiful things. I was on a trip, and I went to a place with a person.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I know. And it was a family home that I went to.
Uh-huh.
And the person and I had been having some conversations about autism and ADHD and how it runs in families. And I walked into this space and was suddenly like, oh, clearly this woman is autistic. The entire house walls were lined in these pristine collections of all sorts of things, like soap from hotels, egg beaters, like a huge, I'd never seen so many egg beaters in my life.
Huh.
Pitchers, cups, all of these different things. There's just like huge collections of
but
them.
all in their own sections.
All in their own sections, all organized and pristine. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, well, I see where that source of the neurodivergence is in that family.
That makes me wonder if, like, etymologists or people who, like, collect things are also soothing.
Self-soothing.
In some way.
Yeah.
Stamps and coins.
Stamps, coins. So.
Bugs.
Interestingly, when men do it.
It's called collecting.
It's called collecting.
Yeah.
When women do it, what do we want to call it? Junk? Clutter? Pack rat?
Right.
It took me a long... Hoarder. Hoarder is a big one, yeah. I'm not hoarder level, but I'm looking right now at one of the collections I have that I didn't even realize I was collecting. And I've been collecting off and on since I was a teenager. So collecting also gives me a lot of comfort. It's also very soothing.
Okay. But collecting, not just to collect, but you also have a propensity to display those collections.
I do. Does everyone?
I don't know.
I mean, I like to display. Having a conversation like this is really difficult because I'm just thinking of like 5 other things that I've noted about myself that are super autistic, or other things that I have collected and didn't realize. And I'm suddenly thinking about my anatomical heart art collection and like, hey, look at that. What was the question?
Well, but that specifically is an interesting one to touch on because it is a bridge point between you and other people. Like, it's not just you collecting anatomical hearts. It's people have learned that you like that art form, and so people contribute to your collection.
They do, and it's... So some folks I've heard, like a person who collects salt and pepper shakers, and they got one and then, oh shit, now they have a bunch. And sometimes that's problematic. I actually love that people know that I love anatomical hearts. I just love them, and they're beautiful. And there are so many different, I could do a whole episode for you on the different ways to present anatomical hearts and the different gifts I've been given of anatomical hearts. And, but yeah, that has been a connection point for me with a lot of other people. And that is nice. I like finding those. My tarot collection is similar. I know other people who love tarot, and I have gifted 2 of my closest friends tarot decks because they hadn't had their own. And so that's like and at some point, like 10 years ago, I decided to get rid of most of my tarot decks and gifted them to my daughter's friends before I decided I was stupid and I started collecting them again. But
there was one, and if you don't want to talk about this, you don't have to, but there was one point throughout, I in my mind, I position it as recovery, but it's just starting to cope with your conditions for your life. But you got significantly into beads. What was that all about?
so it's funny you should say that because I have started working with them again.
Okay. I wasn't saying it was just if it was a phase.
No, I'm super into them. I really enjoy the process of making malas.
Yeah.
Which is a meditation necklace.
Okay. It's kind of like a rosary, but
it's like a rosary for meditation. And there are different formats.
I'm just saying rosary because it's conclave and the Pope and all that thought.
Dude, if you guys have not seen the movie Conclave, go watch it, please. It's not even a comfort watch for me yet. It's getting there.
Stanley Tucci.
Stanley Tucci is brilliant in everything.
John Lithgow.
Oh God, John, when he's a simpering asshat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Eat him up. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Beating.
While I was getting super duper, so during my recovery, it was recovery. Very much during my recovery when I needed something that I could consistently do that didn't make me feel stupid.
Yep.
And I got super into meditation, which has never gone away. Like I meditated when I was young. I wish I had meditated every day my entire life. It has been one of the most significant things to come out of this. But I find it very meditative to string beads and to tie them. And I'm actually like wondering if I can get Chat GPT to just tell me exactly how to sell them online because I'm so bad at that process. I have a ton of inventory that I made meditating and making these different kinds of necklaces. And I wouldn't call that a collection.
No, it's not it's
an activity, but
yeah.
The ADHD, I think, if we want to assign behaviors to a specific diagnosis, I cycle through craft projects. Like I will be super into watercolor, and then I will be super into drawing, and then I'll be super into beads, and then I'll be super into like abstract messy art. And then I'll be like, I need to build a lodge out of bottles in the backyard. So I switched from hobby to hobby really quickly, and the beading was new to you, and it was kind of new to me.
Right.
And it's something that I would like to keep in my life.
Okay. I think this is a good point to move into the like going forward. Like we started this conversation talking about.
I have a question for you though.
Okay. Yeah.
What's changed for you? Living with a person with autism. So to be clear, I've had autism my whole life.
What?
I had ADHD my whole life.
I thought you just caught it recently.
I will tell you, I struggled some with the fact that no changes. You were just like, yeah, no, you're fine. You're still what? There has been, it has felt from my perspective, like there's been no change for you. And that should be really good. But also I'm like, you should something. And I don't think you should something. You shouldn't. You get an A+ from my therapist.
Oh, great. Favored by therapists everywhere.
Never mind whether or not your mom and dad like a guy. What does your therapist?
What's your therapist say? Her mom and dad like me just fine, by the way.
They do. It's true that they like him probably better than they like me. But anyway, as I was saying,
you wanted to ask me a question about.
What has changed for you? What feels different for you since the ADHD autism diagnosis?
I think the only thing that's changed for me, and this is not me dodging the question, the only thing that's changed for me is appreciating that you have a way to contextualize your behaviors and you have a construct that is readily accepted, publicly defined, that you can align with. I think from my perspective, it's just helpful to have that common language to say, and like,
language is super important.
Not to necessarily call it out, but like there are now times where I can, whether I verbalize it or not, recognize an autistic episode or something that is your brain chemistry doing what your brain chemistry does, where previously I may have been more confused as to why that was occurring. But like that's the biggest change, is just the context of what happens and why it happens.
That's yeah. Okay.
Like there's a name for it.
You have been so accepting of so many of my quirky presentations, we'll say, that there was it's not like I was like, hey, you need to accept me for my neurotypical or neurodiverse self. Like you had already accepted all of me. You had accepted parts of me that I still can't fully embrace. So I just wondered if there was any. Thank you. Thank you for answering the question. Now we can go wherever you'd like to go.
Yeah, I just wanted like going forward.
Oh, yes.
Like, because we had talked about like, we really enjoyed mildly interesting people. Like we tried to do, when the interviews weren't working, we're like, oh, maybe we can create content together in a different way. And we tried that with like cinematic vlogs, as the kids like to call them.
I really enjoyed those.
And those were fun. I mean, but it also kind of wound up almost like, and you call me out on this all the time, and I rightly so, where I'm not this may come across as strange to people, given that I've consistently blogged about the Portland startup community for nearly 18 years at this.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20, yeah. And that I show up every week and record my individual podcast and that kind of consistency, that there are any number of things where I do it 2 or 3 times and then I'm like, no, I'm not going to keep doing.
It's a lot. The cinematic vlogs were a lot of editing work.
A lot of editing work, but it also, it almost became a chore to leave the house. Like, it was fine if we were like, I'm really craving a gluten-free donut. Maybe we should record this while we go out. Like, that was fine.
But, well, I mean, example, we're taking a road trip next week.
Next week to the Dells.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, let's relaunch Mildly Interesting People. We'll record a road trip episode.
Right.
That's easy. I agree with you that it was a chore to go and leave the house and do stuff. And that was sucky.
Yeah.
And at some point I was like, maybe we could start doing those on date night. And I was like, that's the worst idea I've ever heard.
That's doubling down on how bad.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know how to solve that particular problem.
But do you want to, like, where you have expressed several times that you would like to get back into podcasting because you enjoy that format.
I enjoy that format. I enjoy those conversations.
But like, what does that, have you thought through what that means, or are you still figuring that out?
I'm feeling through it.
Okay.
At some point you and I discussed turning Mildly Interesting People into an autism discussion podcast and talking with other neurodiverse individuals.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't think that fits that brand. I feel like Mildly Interesting People is our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you, do you want to test drive the like road trip thing and take that as the first step?
Oh my God. So we used to talk about the, what did we call it? This is another, this is called echolalia, I think. When you have to say things out loud, you see something and you have to read it, or you know how when we're on road trips now, I always read all the signage.
Right.
uncontrolled.
No, I don't. I have no clue what you're talking about.
And at one point you were like, we should just record this because there you go.
Yep.
Cami's road trip.
And guess which road you're on based on the signs you're reading?
I think that's super fun. I don't think anybody would really enjoy that except for me, but
Yeah, that's funny.
I want to feel it out. I want to be able to really organically find my niche again. And it's going to take some work. There's some interviews that I'm like, maybe I should do that. And this is really inspiring to me because I don't edit.
Yeah.
I don't want to edit. I don't like all of the production work. I don't want to, like, if I have to do any of that stuff, I won't do the podcast.
Right.
And I know that about myself. It's so horrible and tedious to me.
I just wonder, I mean, suggestion, not obligation, but like, I wonder if for you, just the pure audio, old school podcast.
That's what I've been thinking.
Might not be a better format than video based.
When Strange Love Live started, it was audio only, and that was what I wanted. And I was kind of pushed into doing the video format.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was bad that I was, but it's not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I've come up with a couple of really cute names that I've set aside that I'll have you go through with me later.
Yeah.
Not with them here.
Well, because I think what people are like, oh, what makes videos so much harder? It literally took us like 2 hours to set up for this shot. We had to like figure it out. We
have two phones and a camera.
Figure out how to light it and like all those things. And like with the audio, it's not easy per se, but it feels easier to do that. Just this could be a phone call, this can be a like walk and talk, we don't have to deal with the camera.
Yeah,
might simplify.
I'll have a walk and talk.
Like there are ways to produce that content that aren't as complex as a video.
I think that's a much better option for me, honestly.
Yeah.
But I know people like video, so whatever. And that's not me.
Right. But
fine being on video. It's just, the only podcast that I consistently watch is your Friday morning release.
Right.
And that is literally because every Friday morning you send it to me while I'm still in bed. It's part of my...
And say, please watch this.
Yeah, it's part of my routine.
Please watch this and critique this. And now I've used your autism to my own advantage. But I'm
he has
this is the Friday schedule.
He has scheduled this in. He knows if he doesn't send it to me by 8, he's going to miss his window and it will fuck up my entire day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So use autism in any way you can to benefit yourself.
Is there something that you think people who are partnered with or have a loved one who has recently been diagnosed with autism or ADHD or any late life diagnosis with neurodiversity, is there something you think people should know?
I don't know that I'm the best person to comment on that because I think that would be a jarring kind of thing for some people. Like some people hear words and they automatically are prejudiced against
certain words.
That word.
Okay.
And so like I feel like it's just accepting that definition of like the behavior because the person doesn't change.
Well, there is some change though. I have heard this from people directly about me, and I've read about it happening to a lot of people, that after your autism diagnosis, you're suddenly much more autistic. And it's not that you're more autistic, it's that you've finally been given permission to drop some of the shit that you've been doing your entire life to try to make yourself safe.
Yeah.
That was specifically something that I was wondering about.
Yeah, you have to give people space to like figure out what the thing is, but like I don't know that I have that much. I don't have anything insightful to say in that regard, other than just being a typical like support the people through the thing they're dealing with, and you know,
I think that's good advice for everything.
Let people be the person they want to be rather than expecting them to be the person you think they are, is probably the most I can offer.
Cool.
I don't know about you, but I feel like obviously we get to talk to one another all the time. I feel like we've kind of exhausted both you emotionally and this topic. So is there anything else you want to touch on?
Did I completely shut down? Is that what happened?
You did a little bit. Like you had a few times where like you were starting to feel something and you started to pull back.
Yeah, I don't like to feel.
Yeah. So I don't.
One huge myth about people with autism that I want to clear up right now is that people with autism don't have deep feelings or don't feel or don't have empathy. And maybe some of them don't express it, but there are some people with autism that overabundance of empathy and feeling feelings is overwhelming.
Right.
And I very much fall into that category. And one of the biggest things I had to teach myself in life was to shut that shit down. And I'm trying to learn how to actually feel my feelings.
Yeah.
And it sucks. I don't like it. I don't recommend it. I do recommend it. And apparently it's really good for you to feel your feelings. But
yeah, I'm not game for that.
you don't have to. Please keep your feelings in the box wherever you buried it. You're welcome.
Worked hard on building all those compartments. I will just keep those active compartments.
Well, you know what Freud said about the Irish, don't you?
Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry.
But like, I appreciate obviously you having the willingness to talk about this. I think it's selfishly beneficial that like I don't want to speak on your behalf when I get questions about like, when are you doing mildly interesting people? Why did you guys stop doing like those kind of things? Like it's nice to have you be able to tell that story to people and just kind of illuminate what you're going through.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to keep pushing this.
Cool.
Like, and we can be done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So stay tuned for Mildly Interesting People road trip, which may or may not drop around the same time as this thing, depending.
Cool.
We'll see.
Cool. Well, thank your viewers for me.
I will.
Awesome.
Thanks for taking time to do this. High five. And we're done.
Cool.